Abraham Lincoln's election as president in 1860 represented a crucial turning point in the history of the United States. Running on a Republican platform that opposed the expansion of slavery, Lincoln achieved victory with 39% of the popular vote, taking advantage of the divided Democratic Party. His election prompted the secession of several Southern states, which subsequently formed the Confederate States of America, thereby laying the groundwork for the Civil War. The conflict intensified following Lincoln's inauguration in March 1861. On September 17, 1862, the Union and Confederate armies engaged in battle at Antietam Creek, located near Sharpsburg, Maryland. This engagement, known as the Battle of Antietam or the Battle of Sharpsburg in the southern states, became the deadliest single-day battle in American history, resulting in over 23,000 casualties. The Union's victory compelled Confederate General Robert E. Lee to withdraw and provided Lincoln with the assurance needed to issue the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation on September 22, 1862. This proclamation announced that enslaved individuals in states in rebellion would be liberated as of January 1, 1863, thereby reframing the conflict as a struggle against slavery. Antietam represented a significant turning point in both military and political contexts. It halted the momentum of the Confederacy and deterred European nations from recognizing or supporting the Confederate cause. Additionally, the battle enabled Lincoln to redefine the purpose of the war, enhancing Union morale and facilitating the enlistment of African Americans into Union forces. The Battle of Antietam, fought on September 17, 1862, was characterized more as a bloody stalemate than a decisive victory. While neither side could claim a clear triumph, Union forces maintained their position near the battlefield, while Confederate troops retreated to a more defensible location. Although subsequent battles such as Gettysburg, Spotsylvania, Chickamauga, and the Wilderness resulted in higher casualty figures, the ferocity of Antietam remained unmatched. The battle led to approximately 2,100 Union and 1,550 Confederate deaths in a single day, leaving soldiers, civilians, and political leaders in shock. With more than 23,000 total casualties, the Battle of Antietam became the deadliest single day in American history. Although the outcome on the battlefield was inconclusive, it represented the symbolic victory that President Lincoln required to issue the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. In the summer of 1861, after the Union's defeat at the First Battle of Bull Run, President Abraham Lincoln appointed George B. McClellan as the commander of the Army of the Potomac on July 26, 1861. McClellan promptly reorganized and expanded the Army, transforming it into a well-trained and disciplined force capable of defending Washington, D.C. By November 1, 1861, McClellan succeeded Winfield Scott as the general-in-chief of all Union armies. Renowned for his organizational abilities and well-liked by his troops, McClellan was assigned the dual responsibility of safeguarding the capital and preparing for offensive actions against Confederate forces. On September 13th, crucial intelligence regarding the positions of Confederate troops in Maryland and General Lee's strategy to advance on Washington, D.C. came into McClellan's possession. It is this very McClellan who now possesses the critical document that could determine the outcome of the war. McClellan's discovery of Lee's lost order provided essential insights into the dispersal of Confederate troops and their plans during the Maryland campaign. This intelligence presented the Union with an opportunity to launch a decisive strike. However, McClellan's cautious disposition postponed immediate action, allowing Lee to regroup. Nevertheless, reactions to the battle were mixed at the time. Lincoln and others anticipated that General George McClellan would take advantage of Lee's retreat by pursuing Confederate forces back into Virginia and possibly capturing Richmond. Yet, as in previous campaigns, McClellan hesitated, providing justifications for his inaction. Labeled young Napoleon by the media, McClellan's cautious strategy had long exasperated Lincoln and his administration. His inability to act decisively at Antietam ultimately resulted in his removal from command later that year. As the Civil War advanced, President Lincoln and others increasingly acknowledged General George B. McClellan's excessive caution as a notable flaw in his leadership. McClellan seemed more concerned with safeguarding his army and reputation than achieving decisive victories. Frustrated by his inaction, Lincoln famously remarked, "If General McClellan is not utilizing the army, perhaps he might allow me to borrow it." Prior to the Peninsula Campaign, Lincoln relieved McClellan of overall command of Union forces, retaining him solely as the commander of the Army of the Potomac. During the 7 days battles that concluded the Peninsula Campaign, McClellan's troops performed admirably, but were consistently outmaneuvered by Confederate General Robert E. Lee. Despite having numerical superiority, McClellan's indecisiveness permitted Lee to safeguard Richmond and transition to an offensive strategy. Disheartened, Lincoln effectively sidelined McClellan following this campaign. However, after Union setbacks at the Second Battle of Bull Run under General John Pope, Lincoln reluctantly reinstated McClellan. In September 1862, Lee initiated an invasion of Maryland following recent Confederate victories at Bull Run and Jackson's Shenandoah campaign. His objectives included relieving pressure on Richmond and disrupting Union supply lines from Pennsylvania. This resulted in critical confrontations between McClellan and Lee at South Mountain and Harper's Ferry, setting the stage for the Battle of Antietam. On September 14, 1862, while the Battle of Harper's Ferry was taking place, Union General George McClellan engaged Confederate forces at South Mountain, located approximately 20 miles northeast of Harper's Ferry. South Mountain was characterized by a heavily wooded ridge with 3 significant gaps: Crampton's Gap, Turner's Gap, and Fox's Gap, through which local roads traversed. Intense combat ensued as Union forces pressed Confederate defenders at Fox's and Turner's Gaps as night approached. The rugged landscape of rocks, trees, and underbrush intensified the ferocity of the battle. Faced with increasing pressure, Confederate General Robert E. Lee made the decision to retreat toward Sharpsburg, a small town located between the Potomac River and Antietam Creek. That evening, Lee was informed of the Union garrison's defeat at Harper's Ferry and directed General Stonewall Jackson to advance toward Sharpsburg. Lee opted to position his forces near Sharpsburg despite the challenging geography. The Potomac River offered some protection for his rear, but restricted escape routes, leaving only one bridge available for retreat should his army become trapped. Sharpsburg itself was situated at the heart of Lee's defensive lines. Antietam Creek flowed along his front and was often regarded as more of a small river than a creek due to its depth and width. While shallow sections permitted crossing on foot, 3 primary bridges spanned the waterway. To the north of Sharpsburg, rolling hills interspersed with woods and farmland provided strategic positions for Lee's troops. They fortified their defenses around the West Woods, utilizing Dunker Church, a meeting house for a pacifist sect, as a base of operations. Lee's choice to concentrate his forces at Sharpsburg set the stage for the Battle of Antietam 3 days later, marking a significant turning point in the Maryland campaign. The Hagerstown Pike extended north to south, connecting Sharpsburg with the larger town of Hagerstown, located 13 miles away. South of the woods in Dunker Church, just east of the pike, lay the sunken road, now referred to as Bloody Lane. The morning battle commenced in the northern sector near Dunker Church, and an area later known as the Cornfield. At 5:30 a.m., Union General Joseph Hooker commanded 3 divisions to advance: General Abner Doubleday on the right, General George Meade in the center, and General James Ricketts on the left. Doubleday and Meade progressed through the North Woods, while Ricketts advanced into the East Woods. Hooker led his forces towards Dunker Church in the cornfield, where Confederate bayonets shone among the stalks. He requested artillery support, prompting 6 batteries to commence firing, which led to the cornfield acquiring its notorious name. From 6 a.m. to 6:45 a.m., reinforcements surged into the vicinity from both factions. The cornfield, measuring approximately 250 yards in depth and 400 yards in width, transformed into a scene of carnage, filled with countless dead and injured. Control of this blood-drenched terrain changed hands 15 times before Union forces managed to secure the majority of it east of Hagerstown Pike by 9 a.m. The disorder of Antietam was unparalleled. Combat erupted in the northern area near Dunker Church and the cornfield before extending to the center and subsequently moving southward. As the fighting progressed south, Union General William French's brigade engaged Confederate General D.H. Hill's troops at Bloody Lane. Despite being outnumbered, Hill's forces maintained strong defensive positions atop a ridge along a sunken road bordered by rail fences. Utilizing this natural trench, they inflicted severe losses on French's advancing division, which experienced 30% casualties during repeated assaults on the road. As the battle continued to shift southward, both Union and Confederate commanders dispatched reinforcements to the sunken road. General Robert E. Lee sent over 3,000 men under Major General Richard H. Anderson to assist General D. H. Hill, while Union Major General Israel B. Richardson brought 4,000 troops to reinforce French's divisions and avert encirclement. By noon, the Confederates had incurred considerable officer losses, diminishing their morale. During the Union's fifth assault, initial success devolved into chaos as pursuing troops were outflanked by the Confederates. Exhaustion enveloped both sides after hours of fierce combat from 9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., culminating in approximately 5,600 casualties. The sunken road earned its grim title, Bloody Lane, as retreating Confederates left a scene of devastation in their wake. Simultaneously, another section of the battlefield ignited in the South. General George McClellan's initial strategy included a diversionary attack by Union forces under General Ambrose Burnside to support efforts in the North. Nevertheless, delays modified this strategy. Burnside received his orders at 10 a.m., 4 hours into the Northern battle. The strained relations between McClellan and Burnside exacerbated the situation. Burnside encountered considerable challenges at Antietam Creek, where the southernmost crossing point was Rohrbach Bridge, which later became known as Burnside's Bridge. The narrow stone bridge permitted only 4 men to cross side by side and was well defended by Confederate forces led by Brigadier General Robert Toombs. Despite having a numerical superiority of 5 or 6 to 1, Burnside's cautious tactics and inadequate reconnaissance postponed his assault. Union forces made 2 unsuccessful attempts to cross before achieving success on their third attempt around 12:30 p.m. However, this delay provided Confederate defenders with crucial time to strengthen their positions, ensuring that the Southern battle would be as fierce as those fought earlier in the day. Colonel Edward Ferrero's 51st New York and 51st Pennsylvania regiments took control of Burnside Bridge after a grueling half-hour of combat. The victory came at a significant cost, with Union forces incurring 500 casualties compared to the Georgians' 150. Nevertheless, logistical mismanagement resulted in a bottleneck of Union troops at the bridge, affording Confederate General Robert E. Lee 3 vital hours to reposition his forces. The terrain further benefited the Confederates as the ground sloped towards Sharpsburg, providing them with the high ground. At 3 p.m., General Ambrose Burnside commanded an assault on the Confederate positions. For 2.5 hours, Union forces advanced, but fatigue affected both sides. By 5:30 p.m., the Confederates began to withdraw, yet Union leadership failed to capitalize on the opportunity for decisive action. General George McClellan still had thousands of fresh troops that could have been deployed to bypass his exhausted soldiers and potentially encircle Lee's army against the Potomac River. However, McClellan hesitated, convinced that Lee had reinforcements which he did not actually have. The next day witnessed a short truce to tend to injured soldiers and to swap prisoners. That evening, Lee retreated his army back into Virginia. The Battle of Antietam concluded with overwhelming casualties: 12,410 for the Union, which included 2,108 fatalities, and 10,317 for the Confederates, with 1,547 dead. Although it was tactically inconclusive, Antietam represented a pivotal moment in the war and extended the conflict for an additional 2.5 years. Antietam was not merely a battle, it served as a reflection of the darkest aspects of human conflict and resilience. The blood-stained fields may have faded into the annals of history, yet the reverberations of that day continue to resonate, posing questions we cannot overlook. What lessons have we genuinely absorbed from America's most lethal day? And might the harsh realities of Antietam provide insights for the struggles we encounter today, both within ourselves and as a nation? We invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below, because history is not solely about the past. It is about how we opt to bear its burden into the future. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and enable notifications for more videos from our channel.